Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exciting session. My name is Ashley, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Feel free to go on the chat and get settled in. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from, so let us know in the chat where you're from. And yes, let me just look at the chat and see.
Oh, New Jersey.
Great.
All
We
right.
Cuba. Woo, okay, lots of chat coming in. Amazing. Brazil. I just saw Brazil. Amazing. Mexico.
San
Okay,
Diego, that's where I am.
Paris. Wow. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're so happy that all of you guys could make it. I am going to, while everyone is settling in, feel free to just use the chat to let us know where you're from. I'm going to launch a quick poll with just two simple questions. It'll pop up on your screen. Please take a moment to answer those two questions. We would greatly appreciate it. I will be launching the poll right now. Okay, if you see that on your screen, please feel free to answer that, and I will leave it on there for a little bit. And before we start this webinar, I would like to talk about a little bit of housekeeping. Feel free to use the chat to share your thoughts and your comments throughout the session, but please use the Q&A tab for any specific questions so the customer support team, Anthony, Ginny, Marta, and Ben can answer your questions as soon as possible. Again, please use the Q&A tab for any specific questions, and we'll leave the chat for any discussions and comments. Okay, we will also share a PD certificate for all of those who are in attendance today, and this webinar will be recorded and will be shared with you a day or two after the webinar. And yes, without further ado, I would love to introduce our fantastic speaker for today, Wendy Klatt, Ellie's very own education specialist. Take it away, Wendy.
Ashley, thank you so much. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, just to make sure you all are in the right place, this is Boosting Student Talk Time with Ellie Materials. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us at Ellie. We know how precious your time is, so we are truly grateful to have you here. Um, let's see. Oh, got to move my mouse over. Okay. So just a little bit about who I am. Some of you may know me. My name is Wendy. Hi there. And I have a master's in teaching, and I have a bunch of other credentials that you can read for yourself. I don't need to read them to you. But the main thing is that I've been doing this for 28 years, and I still love it. And I'm sure that you all feel the same way, which is why you're here with us today. And in addition to being with Ellie full time, I wanted to share with you that I also am still teaching. I teach for an amazing program. I teach online, an entrepreneurship bridge course for District 113 adult ed program. And in addition to that, I also help out as an ESL content specialist for them. So that's just a little bit about me and my background. But I think most importantly, we need to kind of figure out why we're here today. We always need to talk about our why, right? And today I really want you to walk away from this webinar understanding why student talk time is so essential and maximizing it. And on top of knowing why that is so important for us in our classrooms as language teachers, I want you to see these amazing materials that Ellie has. And I want you to know where to find them, right? Because a lot of times, like, we're busy, we're teachers, and it's like, I need something, and I need to increase student talk time, but how am I going to do this so quickly? And we have stuff that's already pre-made for you. So I want to share that with you and teach you how to find it. And then lastly, I wanted to talk to you about how I use the materials in my classroom. You might use these materials the same way as I do. You might use them a different way, which you can all share with each other in the chat, which is such a great place to be. And I'd really like you to be able to walk away with some strategies that you can implement right away. So that's why we're here. We're here to understand why it's so important to maximize our student talk time, to look at these fantastic materials and find out where they are, and then to have strategies to use in our classrooms. So because you guys are so active in the chat, oh my gosh, look at you. This is great. I know you can read, but I'm just going to read this out loud as well. But what do you guys think the ideal, because sometimes I'm here talking and I'm just talking to my computer and I kind of want to know that you're out there. What do you think is the ideal percentage for student talk time? And look at, see, you guys already know this. This is awesome. 90%. That'd be pretty amazing. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends on the student's level, maybe. Right. Okay, you guys are, you look at you. You already know it. You already know it. You're already super teachers, I can tell. But yeah, the ideal student talk time is 70 to 80%. And seriously, that is hard to hit every class. It really is. I mean, I know for me, I'm a talkie talker. And in order to hit that, I have to be super deliberate in my planning. And I'm sure that you do as well. I'm just going to touch on some of I mean, there are like a million benefits to increasing student talk time, but I'm just going to touch on, a few of them. In any, ESL classroom, it's essential to be effective, right? We have to apply what we're learning. Um, we need to improve their fluency and their confidence. And the thing is, in our classroom, like in my classroom is a family. That's really important. Community is very important in my classroom. And so the only way I can build that confidence in our students is with having them practice is if they feel comfortable to be using the language over and over and over and to be able to make mistakes. And the student talk time, the benefits is that they have the opportunity to practice it. I know that you all know this, but I'm here to remind you that you can't just like look at a picture of a bicycle and want to ride a bike, right? You have to be able to get on that and use it. You have to use that language, and we have to be really deliberate again in our planning. Now, if we're maximizing student talk time in our classroom, that means our classrooms are active and engaging. And if our classrooms are active and engaging, that any learner in any situation, it's a better classroom, right? Because they're internalizing the language. And like I said before, they're applying the language. And when it's active and engaging and fun, they don't have that pressure. And your classroom should be a warm, safe place for your learners to be able to make mistakes. So you can go around and give them that immediate formative feedback in real time while they're using this target language, which is English in our case. And then the wonderful thing about, well, Ellie, besides having a resource for just about anything you want to teach, is that they have material that's relevant and current. Our publishing team is amazing. They're producing new material almost every single day. And this is what our learners want and that they need. And so that they have things that are practical, that they can use in their everyday life. Because when they leave our classroom, we want them to be confident in real life. That is ultimately student success, right? That they feel so confident using that in real life. Um, I just to make sure you guys are still here, uh, I just wanted to know what challenges do you face in increasing student talk time? I mean, mine is that I'm a talkie talker and I got to rein it in. And so I have to be, that's why Ellie in my teaching, before I, joined Ellie this year, I used it all the time. All of the time I implemented Ellie material in my classroom. Some students' confidence keep, oh my gosh, I can't read the chat fast enough, you guys. Self-conscious, yes. Students' English level, yeah, the beginners. I'm going to talk about that. And one of the things I'm going to show that I use with my multi-level classrooms, feeling embarrassment. Yeah, there's like no end to the challenges we face as teachers, right? They're really, and you guys have really touched on just about every single one of them. Thank you for being wonderful participants, by the way. Um, I want you guys to let Ellie help you increase this student talk time. And, I didn't have like 1,000 hours to talk to you about Ellie. So I had to be discerning. I had to pick four resources, that pretty much, all I can talk about in this time frame. And because I wanted to give you specific examples of how I use it in my classroom. And these were four of my go-tos that I use. So if you're not using them by the end of the session, I hope that you will because they're amazing. So here we go. Let's click on the first one here, which is discussion starters. So Ellie has, well, just let me jump back here real quick. The four I'm going to talk about are the discussion starters, the dialogues, the real world readings. Try to say that fast 3 times. It's hard. And then Ellii Polls, which are a newer addition to Ellie that I love and that everybody I've talked to loves using in their classroom. It's great for increasing student talk time. So the first one are the discussion starters. Again, with me, it's like the why. Why are discussion starters important? Well, obviously it's active engagement with interesting topics. And that's what's cool about Ellie. It's like they have all of these different topics that students can talk about. And these would probably be like intermediate to advanced level. I am going to talk about lower proficiency levels for the next two examples. So I was trying to hit everything. Um, but, we're wanting to increase that fluency, and if it's structured and scaffolded, like with an Ellie lesson, then the students feel more comfortable. And when they're thinking about these like interesting topics and, thoughtful topics, it's promoting their critical thinking in another language. Isn't that great? And then obviously we can formulate our thoughts and, we're not just doing stuff out of rote and memorizing and regurgitating. We're forming thoughts in the target language and we're talking about it. And again, the kind of the thread through this, maximizing student talk time and something that is very, very dear to me is increasing that confidence in our students. I saw that a lot in the chat here. It's really vital that our classrooms are safe. And they're safe for our learners because we create that environment, and because it's safe and they can make mistakes, that we want to boost their confidence as much as we can in the classroom so that when they go out, they can speak and they're confident and they're sure of what they're saying and they're sure that they're going to be understood, right? Okay, so discussion starters. I told you I was going to show you what they are and where they are. Well, where they are, I'm going to kind of flip that order. But if you click on materials and you go to lessons, it's the first genre there with, the category discussion starters. I mean, we've got 148 lessons to choose from. There is something for everyone there. You get on the discussion starter landing page, and then I chose the one on climate change because I've taught that in my class, and it was what my students were interested in, right? So it had some agency about what they wanted to learn about. So with Ellie, another cool thing about Ellie is that there are two ways we can deliver these lessons. There's the print format, which is in a PDF, which you can download and give to your students if you're in person. And then there's also the digital aspect of this, which is where it says launch tasks right there. So that's the digital version. So like when I teach online, sometimes the digital version presents better in my Zoom. Or the digital can also serve as, you can create a classroom and your students can do the work on their phones, which we all know most of our students do their work on their phones. Or if they do it in class and they have um, PCs or whatever, Chromebooks, they're on their phones at home or something. So I'm going to show you first what it looks like in the digital version and how it would look like if you were doing a Zoom class. So I'm going to jump in, and then this is the first, this is the first thing that the student would see and that you would pull up. It's the warm up. And we all know accessing prior knowledge, we want them to start talking. And remember, this is like an intermediate to advanced level. There's a short video, it's really cute, and then it's got, 3 thought-provoking questions for our students to, kind of access it prior, get it rattling around upstairs. Um, and then as you can see, I also want to just mention that like here, this tab with the contents, you can you can minimize that. So then it's just the screen. You don't have to have all that stuff on the left. But I left it there for you to see that the same activities and tasks that you have in the digital, we also have in the print. And this is just so you could see what the print looks like. And it's the same warm-up questions, right? It's just laid out visually differently, one to fit digital, one to fit PDF. This would be what it would look like in digital for the vocabulary preview. It's a drag and drop. You can do this as you're presenting or on Zoom, or your students can actually do this on their phones, which is really nice. And then this is the same, those are the same vocabulary that you'd have in the PDF. So it's nice, you have your choice. And that's really great for teachers like me who teach in different modalities. And lastly, in the discussion starters, you're talking about a topic, there's also a reading, there's a listening, and then you have these discussion questions. It's already done for you. You don't have to type anything in, you don't have to create anything, it's done. And so you can assign this however you want. I like to, put my students in groups, and I have one group talk about one group talk about another one group talk about the third, and then we'll kind of jigsaw it and they can share. But you have to do what works for you in your classroom, but just know that the materials are here and they're engaging and they're thoughtful. So another cool thing about the digital is this. So if you have a classroom and your students are in your classroom and you assign them something, you can keep them talking outside of your classroom too, which obviously this isn't in the PDF one, but it is in the digital one. And it's this down here at the bottom, I think I have a little arrow there. Sometimes I forget to click that. I'm human. But okay, so look there's like a little recording button, and the student, sometimes I saw that in the chat that somebody was saying, oh, my student's self-conscious, and that's okay. You don't ever want to force somebody to speak, but sometimes this is a great way to get them speaking outside of class too, because they can record it at home until they really, boost their confidence, because you're going to help them boost their confidence. But this is a great piece of the digital, is the students being able to record and then you're being able to listen and give them feedback. So those are the discussion starters. Again, really interesting topics. We have new ones almost every day, and probably for intermediate to advanced students. The next thing I would like, if you do have, I'm just going to say, because I'm kind of glancing off to the chat a little bit, cheating here a little bit, but if you do have questions, remember to put them in the Q&A, because I will never get to those in the chat. But put them in the Q&A, and then my friends here at Ellie will help me, and we can answer them for you, or I can answer some I'm hoping to stop talking by the end so that I can answer some live. So thank you. Okay, next, dialogues. Okay. I saw in the chat somebody was talking about like it's really hard with beginners. Oh yeah, it is. I have taught low beginning for quite a while. I love teaching low beginning adult. I teach adults. I don't know if I made that clear, but in the beginning, I mentioned the adult program. But yeah, so I teach low beginning adults, and it is, and that was a challenge. And I found these awesome dialogues in Ellie, and that was a great way for me to get my students speaking. And it was fun because they'd work with a partner, because it's, we're human beings, we need to work together. And when you collaborate with new friends in class, and it's that emotional piece of forming connections, that sticks in your brain. And I know that's important. And I've seen the success of my students by using dialogues. I mean, I cannot emphasize using dialogues enough. And it's because it's so well scaffolded, because it's structured, and like, especially for my low beginners, everything is there for them. And it's real language. Like with Ellie, it's real language that they're hearing out there. They're going to hear it. And so it's like they have it right there. And it's a real life context. And I love teaching pronunciation. Side note about pronunciation, not perfect pronunciation, right? Nobody needs to talk exactly like me, nor should they, because we all have accents. And you can tell I'm probably from Chicago by this accent. But the main thing is that the students with pronunciation are clear. We want that clear pronunciation so they're comprehensible, so they're understood. And again, that's where that confidence piece comes in when you're teaching pronunciation. So you help them, and the dialogues help them that like muscle memory for their mouths over and over and over, and they can practice making the sounds. And they get those key words and key phrases that you can help them with. And the other thing about dialogues is that when you assign them, that they're off working in their pairs, or maybe you're with a partner. Because there's always an odd number of students in my class. I don't know about you guys, but you can give them that formative, immediate feedback and instant correction. And you can see they feel so much better after you can correct them in real time, right? If you were just talking at them, they would never get that if they weren't practicing in your class and practicing the language. So again, that's our why to use the dialogues. Now let me show you where and what. Um, so again, we're going to the materials, right? Because that's what Ellie is, this huge repository of like so many teacher resources and materials. And we're going to go to lessons, whoops, and then we're going to actually scroll down until we get to life skills. This is a great genre or area, whatever you want to call it, of lessons, and there's categories of lessons. The one I'm going to look at, can you guess? It says dialogues. So it's everyday dialogues. And there's 65 of them there to choose from. Like there's no shortage. I mean, there are dialogues in some of the other lessons. That could be one of your homework pieces is to go find out where they are. And then you can email me and tell me if you found them. But when you go to the everyday dialogue, you on their landing page, you're going to scroll down and the first topic here is community. Well, that's, again, really important to me. And for my students, I want them to feel safe and comfortable and confident in the community where they live and the community of the world as a whole, so they can talk to people. Um, One I've used is asking for directions. Okay, someone said to me like, "Oh, nobody asks for directions anymore." Well, I do, and I know my students do too. So, but they really seem to enjoy this lesson. So this is why I chose this one. I choose from my learner feedback when they tell me what they like and what they don't like. But they do like this one. Um, so again, I'm going to show you what this looks like in the PDF version as opposed to the digital version where I showed you discussion starters. So if we open the PDF, look at how inviting that is for our learner. I mean, doesn't your brain just calm down when you see this? Ellie really shines, I would say, in having this clean, simple look that's crucial for our ESL learners, no matter what level, whether you're in middle school, I have taught middle school, whether you are in high school, I taught in a high school program too, or whether you are in an adult or higher ed setting, right? It's really important that it's not this cognitive like overload, like that our learners can comprehend it on the page visually, right? As well. And I love this one for my low beginners because it has the pictures, right? For the definitions. And you can see like, vocabulary preview, we're always, we're building our vocabulary. We've got our images. And then this is what it looks like digitally. So, you have the picture and then you can just drag and drop. So either way, but so I was using it as a PDF in my classroom. Now, here is the dialogue I was talking about. You can see it's very simple. Can I zoom in on the page? Oh, I'm so glad I don't know if I can without like stopping the show, but you can go to Ellie and go on and find this one. So I'm sorry I can't zoom in on that, but that's a good note for next time. I appreciate that formative feedback right now. Um, so the dialogue is about somebody saying, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the post office?" And they say, walk straight ahead. And how far is that? 2 or 3 blocks. You can't miss it. Thanks a lot. You're welcome. Very simple, simple. I know I probably could zoom in on my screen, but I got a lot going on here. So I'm just going to keep going and then you can go find it. Um, but the, um, uh, the dialogue, like what I love about these is that they're using the stuff that we use all of the time in our everyday language. It's why it's everyday dialogues. Like, and can you tell me? Can you tell me? Like, how many times do we say, can you, or can you tell me? Can you tell me what time it is? Can you tell me where the principal's office is? Can you tell me where the bathroom is? I mean, what great language to teach our students at the lower levels, and that it's scaffolded. It's in it's in its form that we're going to use it. So it's really nice to have these structured sentences, and they're not too long. When I teach these, obviously I have a bunch of steps that I go through. We teach, I make sure we all understand the words. Then we go over the pronunciation, and then we do it chorally, probably. I will say it, they'll repeat it back so that nobody is having to speak by themselves, unless, of course, they volunteer that they want to speak by themselves. Um, and then actually, so down below, the lesson has extra practice, and that I would probably use if I were using this like with a higher level. But with my beginners, I cut the paper in half, and then I give them, so again, to kind of reduce like the amount of words on the page, for my low beginners, so they just can focus on one thing at a time and maybe don't get distracted. I give them the dialogue and they partner up and then they practice. And as I've said before, I go around and I help. And then after a certain amount of time of practicing, we all come back together and the students perform the dialogue for the class. Now, in the 28 years, oh gosh, it's been 28 years, and 28 years of teaching, whether middle school, high school, or adult ed, I have yet to have students that do not want to perform with a partner. Maybe they don't. I have students that don't want to get up in front of the class by themselves, and that's totally understandable. But with these dialogues, and if your classroom is warm and friendly and safe for risk taking and safe for making mistakes, they will get up and they will definitely perform. And some of them even like to go back up there, because they want to be, they just want to shine. And we want them to shine because in our classroom, that's where they're getting this practice. And this is just a great way to increase your student talk time like that in these lower level classes. If you're thinking about ways to try to do that. And I mean, you can extend this. I mean, this can last a really long time in your classroom, depending on how you go over the dialogue and, the vocabulary leading up to it. Obviously, there are more parts to this lesson, but this is just what I had, wanted to focus on for today. But again, it's really crucial that you get your lower level students, lower proficiency levels, speaking right away in your classroom. Instead of just listening and being receptive, listening, we want them to produce. We really want them speaking. And I can honestly tell you, the dialogues have been a game changer for me. So, and that's what it looks like on the phone. Again, really easy to read for our students. You can even assign this to your students. If you've made a class in Ellie, you can do that. And you can assign this to your students, and then they can practice again at home. Maybe they forgot the paper, they'll always have it on their phones. Okay, so the third one I'd like to talk to you about are these real world readings. So these real world readings are fabulous. With these, you can have varied language practice just because you're taking material that the students, Ellie has created materials that, students will encounter in their real life. And again, isn't that really what we're here for, is to get our students out of our classrooms and into the real world using their English, and feeling confident to use their English. So the more materials that we have that help them get there on that the path to success, the better. And I have found these, my students really, really enjoy these. So the way I'm going to show you, obviously, I'll show you where they are and how to find them. But I'm going to show you a way that I use them in my classroom that's maybe a little, I mean, I'm sure that some of you have seen this before, but it's just a little bit different than maybe the entire lesson is laid out. And what it does is it promotes interaction. Now, naturally, these lessons that were created in Ellie, these real world readings, um, they promote problem solving in the target language. And isn't that kind of what, we're all hearing is, teaching, we need to have critical thinkers, we need to have problem solving. And that's true. And there are materials to help us do this. So they're right here, which is fabulous. And then I like to make sure that in my classroom that it's collaborative. Um, as I said in the beginning, uh, as I said in the beginning, we're human beings, right? And the research shows that we learn and we remember, right? Not only when we connect to the material, why we're always accessing that prior knowledge, but when we connect with each other, and there's an emotional component to it, which is again why I like the dialogues and I like these discussion starters, because we're interacting with each other in the classroom. We're increasing that student talk time, but we're also, creating community, and we're creating, bonds that our students are going to take outside of the classroom as well. And they form this friendship in a new language, English for them. So these materials, yes, of course, and also encourages fluency, and then my big thing today, the confidence, because we're increasing that student talk time in our classrooms. Not only, I talked about the benefits, but again, we really need our students to feel confident to use this outside of our classrooms when they go out into the wild there. Okay, so we're back on the Ellii page, and we're going to go to materials. You're getting the hang of this now. We're going to go to materials. We're going to click on lessons, and then we're going to scroll down. And again, we're going to stop at life skills. And we're going to go to real world readings. And we're going to click on that. And then we'll come to the real world. I keep saying that, the real world landing page. And for me, in my situation, this past few years, I was teaching low beginning adults in that community-based program, and employment was really important. It was an important topic that we needed to address in our classroom a lot. And I always, wanted more and more and more material. So Ellie was there to save the day. And one of the ones that I used over and over was job ads. So again, you land on the lesson and you have the choice between having print that you can download and just give to your students, or you have the digital option, which is launch tasks. So I'm going to click into this. We have the first piece of the lesson is the vocabulary preview. And as we know, as language teachers, we're always building vocabulary. And I found this vocabulary in my low beginning class They found it, not that I found it, they found it challenging. So this was great because they knew some of it, but it was challenging. And so I had them work together. Well, first, we'd go through the vocabulary and we'd pronounce it and we'd read it. Um, and then I would have them work in groups. And it always worked out kind of well. I mean, because that way I can move around between the groups, but collaboratively, and they're not using their phones to look it up. Um, they could kind of piece together which definition went with which word, depending, because I had so many people working together to solve this. And that's what I was talking about with being collaborative and working together to problem solve. So as you can see here, great vocabulary words for our beginning learners, and then what it looks like on the telephone if maybe you assigned this to your students digitally. And again, here we have, so they're going to be four examples of job ads. There's three examples and then one is an assessment, but I didn't use the assessment as an assessment, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Um, where Ellie shines, like I've said, is that it's visually clean and clear and consistent and simple. And that's why as a teacher, even before, I mean, before I joined Ellie, I'm like super happy. I'm here now, but before I was with Ellie, I was using this in my classroom. I mean, because I knew that these were so powerful to use as a teacher because of the way that they were represented visually and pedagogically to help my students be successful. And you can see there's a multiple choice, right? So for some of my students, like the SLIFE students with limited or interrupted formal education, this was a great introduction to like doing school, right? Because doing school as an adult, once you've left school, can be overwhelming. Doing school as a student, maybe middle school or high school, that's come from a different country and a different school system, can be overwhelming. And we don't want our students to be overwhelmed. And when you look at this, it's like so peaceful. It doesn't look like this, hard multiple choice test. It's very inviting for the learner. And what it would look like on the phone. And you can see the example two as it's laid out. It's just another job ad. And then you can see the third one, Windward Farms, another job ad. No multiple choice. Oh, it does provide great CASAS prep. You are right, Joanne. I was sneaking a look at the chat there. Look, I shouldn't be multitasking, right? And then my favorite one is the Spicy Taco Shack. I don't know which person in publishing created that, but that was always our favorite. So this is the assessment, but let me show you how we use this in my classroom. So those are my students that I miss very much. They graduated from my class though, so they were going to move on anyway. But I use stations. And that's another thing. If you're not using stations in your classroom, no matter what level you're teaching or where you're teaching, stations are awesome. Okay, it's a lot of work up front for us as teachers, maybe, but we're used to doing a lot of work, aren't we? um, so I put each of the job ads around the room because remember, I had students that had maybe not gone to school for a while, and I didn't want to overwhelm them with like thinking that this was a test. And I wanted my students to create a really strong community in the classroom, and I wanted them to work with different people all the time. So the stations are great. Okay, and I'm going to tell you, it can be a total hot mess the first time you do it. I'm just putting the warning label on that because you have to teach them how to do the stations. And if the proficiency level is low, the directions are hard to convey, but you can do it. I know you can because you're super educators, because you're here right now learning even more. Um, and then you set up the stations, and depending on how many, I usually had to have like 2 rounds. I don't know if you can see me doing this, 2 rounds of stations, like because I had too many people in my class. So, I put 2 or 3 people together. Ideally, it would be 2 people, Three is okay, never four, because you know that fourth person is not going to be talking. That just is an opportunity for silence. So um, so I'd have duplicate sets right in the room, and then I would have them give them a certain amount of time to work on the, the task, and then they would, when the timer was up, then they moved to the next task. So yes, it was a hot mess the first time I did this. Well, just stations in general when I teach it. But I'll tell you what, it is the greatest thing ever. And if any of you have open enrollment, the nice thing is that then when you do stations again, the students who have been there are actually teaching the new students. So that's cool. And then also when you're doing these stations with your students, be cognizant of like how you're doing them, right? Like, are you going to group them by like ability or cross ability? That's something to keep in mind too. I would often group them, cross ability, maybe someone is a little higher and someone a little lower. And then the student, like I just said, becomes the teacher. And then we know when we teach, we remember, and then that learning is sticky. Um, so that's a really great way to use these real world readings. And as a matter of fact, you don't have to just use it with real world. I mean, you can use it with pretty much any of these awesome resources at Ellie. This is just a specific one I always used in my class, and I wanted you to see that. So, any questions about that, you can just pop in the Q&A. So we'll say goodbye to the stations. Okay, the Ellii Polls. This is awesome. Okay, if any of you, it's like, if any of you know Kahoot, it's kind of like Kahoot. So it's interactive with students with their phones, because they always have their phones all the time, right? Um, so um, uh, there, remember to pop your questions in the Q&A, because I just saw a really good one that I wanted to answer, but I'm not going to do that until after I show the Ellii polls. But okay, the Ellii polls, they're interactive, they're engaging, it's this spontaneous speech, it expands your vocabulary, and you're making these really cool personal connections. Like, the polls are about things that I probably would not even think about. Our publishing team is so awesome. They're just like, they got all the ideas and I just implement, it's fantastic. It's a great relationship. Um, so um, where do we get these polls? We get these polls, we go to materials, you see where you're going again. And then all the way down at the bottom, do you see where it says Ellii Polls? And do you see where it says free? Yes, they are free. I think all you need to do is input maybe your email address or something. But I, that's another piece of homework. I think one of your homeworks was to like go find where else we have dialogues in Ellie. And then another one of your homeworks is to go do an Ellii polls in your classroom by the end of the semester. I'm giving you lots of homework today. Um, these are serious. They are so much fun. I did it in a session for teachers, and we could not stop talking. So we had to like move on, because again, I'm a talky talker. So it's like, I'm really trying to get to the end of this session without going over. All right. So these are the Ellii polls. Um, there are so many to choose from. I just wanted to show you, so it's like, and then we've got polls that are, super fun, like, I don't know, like fun for me, fitness. I love fitness, right? So, or like it can get kind of serious. Like, I think there's one on, well, AI and copyright, and then I think there's one on prison, um, zoos, weddings, something maybe as serious as water conservation. So like there's no end, and there's more, but I'm not going to click through another one. So they're really, and we're adding new, well, not me, but we as Ellie, but the publishing team, they're adding new ones all the time. And if you have a suggestion, shoot them an email at Ellie and let them know, because we're here for you as teachers. These resources are here because you tell us what you need in your classrooms. And you have told us you love the Ellii polls, which I can say as a teacher who uses them, I do too. Um, so the one I did, I told you at the beginning of this that I teach an entrepreneurship bridge course for District 113 adult ed program, and I love it. And I love that program, and I love my students. And my students are, you're going to see them in a second. I decided to do this poll on intuition because we had been talking about making decisions as an entrepreneur. And I thought intuition just played perfectly into that. So when you click on that poll, you can start the poll, is where I have that circled. But you also, I didn't put this on there, but you can preview it because that's your homework is to go use a poll. But you can preview the poll. And so you can see like what the main question is, and then you can see what that first question, and then we have vocabulary words that pop up, and the students have to, like, do you know this word? And then the result, like you can see it live in real time as everybody's voting. It's like going back and forth and showing the percentage of who knows what. Super cool. And then there are other questions like there are 3 agree or disagree questions, and then 3 like elaborate on this questions. So I have, so you can preview that as a teacher and decide like, oh, I'm going to use these 3. I'm not going to use, maybe I won't show the whole poll. Maybe I'm going to use this as a warm up, or maybe I'm going to use this as a cool down. I mean, quite honestly, these are really great and could actually be used. I mean, like I had one guy in a session who told me he would use it for, and he had a 3-hour class and 1 hour was speaking, and he would use it for the entire class. I mean, how great is that? That the students want to keep talking about this stuff. Easy peasy way of increasing student talk time. So I'm just going to ask all of you to give me 2 minutes and I think it's 42 seconds of your time to watch my students talking about this poll. I thought this would be just a great way to end with you all because this is why we're here. And I wanted to show you that it really does work and students really love this. Now, I wanted to show you like my whole class using this, but I couldn't. I had to keep breaking it down more and more and more. But I chose this piece for a reason. So let me just play this and just I'll turn off my talker right now so you can see. Anybody else want to add to what he said? Or
Yeah, sure. I also voted disagree. We have to think logically before we go to the conclusion. Once that is not there, for example, let's say in exams, right? We have 4 choices, multiple choices, and we don't know the answer. In that case, we can go for intuition. But if you know the answer, logical answer, then we should disagree this.
what, Andrew, you want to say something?
Yes, I have an opinion. Intuition is necessary when you haven't enough information. When you have enough information about people or maybe acquaintance on anybody else. You need to decide what you can do. If you haven't time to check him or her or this idea, and you need to make a decision. I think intuition work with our future. If from future you can see your future, how its situation will be organized from now to future, and it would be a nice decision just now for your future or not.
Okay, I love that. So I heard someone else want to say something. Who's that? Oh, Shraddha. Shraddha and then Sana.
Okay. Go ahead, Sana, if you want to. Okay, so it's just shortly. I saw that the intuition. Sometimes we are in some places that we have to use our intuition, and we have to choose either this or that. So there is no other choice. So yeah, just if it depends on your future, it depends on something. So that's why I agree.
Okay. You and Andrew sound kind of similar there. Yeah. Sanaa, thank you.
Welcome.
Stop that. Okay. This is kind of when I wish like I could see all your faces and stuff and talk to you like in, real time, but how amazing is that? Yeah, the Ellii Polls, intermediate to advanced. I've used it. This is an advanced class, obviously, but I have used it in a little bit lower and it's worked. But I just want to point out two things. One, the second man who spoke when he was talking about the future, that guy could not speak it fluently and in full sentences a year ago in my class. And for him, when I heard him talk like that in these polls, I mean, it was just, that's success. It was amazing because I hadn't heard him talk that much like that before. So that was really powerful for him. And then for me to see as an educator that, allowing my students to actually talk in class really, really helps them. And the second thing was that polite exchange between those two women, Shraddha and Sanaa, they both started to talk at the same time, which, in Zoom is always like, oh my gosh, it can be kind of a nightmare and teaching language in Zoom. And then they're like, it's awkward and jolty. But they navigated that situation so beautifully and so politely. And that's a skill in and of itself, really, to have that. And, I do teach that deliberately, that polite language deliberately, but they're using it and they're using it in the right context. It's like, this is fantastic. So I just want to tell you that anybody else want to add? I don't want to tell you that, but I just want to tell you that the Ellii polls are fantastic. They're free. Go use them tomorrow. I did make it in time to leave time for questions. Remember, to recap, we talked about discussion starters that would be intermediate to like advanced, dialogues and real world readings, which you can use with your lower level students and higher level too, if you want. And then Ellii polls, which would be like intermediate, advanced. So please let me know if you have any questions. Ashley, are there any in the Q&A that I should answer?
Yes, there's actually a few. Let me just see which one. One second. Could you please, this is a question from Jenny. Could you please demonstrate how to use pre-vocab sections where words and answers stay on the same pages? It can be hard to not see the full screen.
Hold on. I don't think I understand that question. Can you explain the words? And are you talking about Jenny? Are you talking about digital? I don't know if she can unmute. Are you talking about when you look at it digitally or you're on a paper? Because on the paper you see them all. I think what she's talking about is when it's a digital interface and there are the words and then not all the definitions are there. I go through each definition together as a class before to make sure that we look at them all and that we're aware of them all, and then we're able to go scroll and find them. I hope that answered. Jenny, if I didn't answer that well, will you please email me, wendy@eslteachingtips.com? And I hope I understood that. Ashley, is there another question?
Yes, there's one from Maggie. Can you discuss multi-levels in one class?
Oh, I'll tell you, what class isn't multi-level, my friend? What class isn't? Yes, I can discuss that. Ellie actually has a ton of lessons that are at different proficiency levels. So what I would do if I were you and I had multi-level learners, what I have done when I have had multi-level learners in my classroom is I've printed out the different, whether like low intermediate, high intermediate, or beginner intermediate. I've found lessons that have had the same material, because really you want to be working on the same material so everybody feels included, right? My big thing is we're a family, we work together, we're collaborative, we're human, right? We need connection. So Ellie's great. It has stuff at different proficiency levels. That's how I would handle multi-level learning. It's in every class. So that's the nature of our profession. I think I've got time for another question.
Yes, this question is from Max. How can we make the best use of dialogues for one-on-one lessons?
Max, that is a great question. So if I were teaching the dialogues with one-on-one, well, it's great because then there are two of you for the dialogues. But I would really take your time on working on making sure that your student knows all of the words in the dialogue in the correct context. I would practice pronunciation. And then I would be practicing the dialogue with them back and forth, and then switching roles. And then ultimately it'd be kind of cool if like your student could go then find somebody at home or another English speaker if possible, and then record it practicing that dialogue and send it to you in WhatsApp or in a text or in some other form. So I hope that answers your question, Max. And we have time for one more?
Okay, yes, there's one question from Catherine. How can we reinforce pronunciation in a low-level classroom? Any other ideas on how to boost pronunciation in the classroom?
Sure. I spend a lot of time on that in my low-level class. So a couple things I do. I do a lot of like choral repetition. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but that seems to make them very comfortable if they're all doing it together all at the same time. And I'm like, I'm kind of a high energy person if you haven't noticed, but so I get them all speaking and pronouncing the words. I say it, they say it. I do it, we do it. I do it, we do it. And then I actually I do this thing called the whip around, and you can pass if you'd like, but none of my students really like to pass. What I do is the whip around. So let's say we're practicing a word, I don't know, like paper, something very, easy. So we've been practicing a word, we've been pronouncing it, and then I do a whip around. So everybody gets a try at it, is that I go around the room and I say, it's time for a whip around, and I teach what a whip around is. Remember, you always have to like teach the concept to them first, which it's a little bit of a time, it takes a little bit of time up front to teach that. But if it's something you use, like I use it in my class, every single class. So I have to teach it at the beginning so my students understand. So then they go around the whip around. Each student out, I start with me and I'll say paper, then paper, paper, paper. And it goes all the way through the class. And the beautiful thing about that is, one, they love it and it's really fast paced. And then if somebody, mispronounces it, they can, their friend next to them will like whisper how to say it better. It's real fun for building community. So in the lower levels, I do a lot of the choral repetition, the whip around, and then those dialogues, really. So I hope that answered your question. It was a great one. Ashley, I know we're getting short on time. I don't know. I mean, if we have one more or we should go. It's almost 1:59.
Okay, one more. Any tips to engage low-level students online? Last question.
Oh my gosh, that's like the hardest one. Visuals. This is where Ellie will help you. We have like a bazillion flashcards. They're so great. Remember, clean, simple images that are consistent. And these flashcards, and the word pops up, and then like you can practice, they can repeat. You can do that choral repetition online and engage them. And then you can even do a whip around with your students online. You can say, I'm gonna, and just say their name, and you can ask. I mean, usually my students always want to participate, even if they're low level, they can still they still have the agency to tell me that if they don't want to. But I would use those Ellie flashcards to get them speaking with words first. I think that's it. Yeah, I think we have over 6,000 or no, about 6,000 flashcards, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to say I really, truly appreciate everybody being here and your thoughtful questions. And ultimately, like, I really appreciate what you're doing for our learners, because that's why we're here, for student success. And to use materials like Ellie to get our students there is just, it's awesome. So I appreciate all of you, and we appreciate all of you very, very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. This webinar, a recording will be shared a few days after this webinar, and anyone who is here today will receive a PD certificate. So stay tuned on that. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more of our webinars in the near future. Thank you everyone for joining.
Ellie.